What up, Seeking Knowledge family, man? I'm back once again with this amazing guest. Like, he's special. Like, he got a lot to talk about. The basis of help the school don't teach. And I met this brother on the OWL app, and like the first time we talked like two times the same day, and we connected, and now we're here making history. So I'm gonna be quiet. How you doing today, Mr. Daniel?
I'm fantastic. Rainy day on the West Coast, but another day in paradise.
I love it. So I know you got a lot to share about the basis of help the schools don't teach. Like, I know you got your own company, if I'm not mistaken,
That's right. That's right.
and you get into the science of things. Like, everybody don't like science. One of my favorite subjects in school. It wasn't math, but I kept money, but it was science because it taught a lot about the body, and it just taught about different things and dissecting frogs and just nature, science. But the people don't know what you're into, and they want to know your story. So share a little bit about yourself and what got you on your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe we just start with science
Go
because science was my absolute favorite subject by far and large because it was the natural world. It is this realm that we're born into, and I'm
ahead.
interested in it. It's not the economics, it's not law, it's not what man is using as tools to run our systems, which are great. That's I'm not poo-pooing by any means, but that wasn't what I'm interested in.
Mm,
And as a 6-year-old, I wanted to be a surgeon. Right, that kind of
okay.
a weird thing a 6-year-old say, but I had terrible stomach aches, lots of pain in the stomach. Right, like you did things wrong when you're a kid. You started off, call it, on the wrong foot. And I go into maybe all the things that were wrong, but my family didn't know. I think most families, they don't know all everything you got to do. What's the healthy, what's the right thing, right? Like what's the food that's available? What are we injecting into the kids? What are we giving them as far as all these sugary treats that were just stimulating the brain like cocaine, literally like cocaine. It's the exact same image if you put it side by side
Exactly.
with neuroimaging. And
They
so,
say sugar works with the cocaine.
yeah, right, because it's very slow, debilitating. But I now run a scientific consultancy, and I interact with smart people, like engineers and whatnot, lawyers, and I'm coming to see that they've been bamboozled in with marketing, and they're not able to see what science is. Science is very simple, and I see a lot of individuals now move towards what they say, oh, I'm going down the spiritual route. I know the science, but I don't want the science. The science is something different. And I'm here, I'm the guy, I'm your science authority, not because someone elected me, but because you'll see I'll do the work for you. uh, Hopefully I'm your science authority because you recognize what I'm saying has merit, because it helps you connect with the world in front of you. That's what science is. Science is a way of thinking. Science is a tool to help you investigate this natural world. And as kids, we all knew this. And people, the everyday man that's very separate from, call it, the business of science, knows this perfectly, right? They know when I ask, hey, what does science mean to you? Oh, evidence-based knowledge, something that I can come back to, that's what science is. That's the expectation. But now people think it's the medical establishment, your blood tests that you get. Well, no, that's just the way somebody chose to interpret it. That's not where the science stops. Heck, you're probably only seeing a fraction of what the actual science is. So what's the science? Well, the science is anything you can measure, observe, and then try and predict. Right?
Mm,
So this is it. It's a very simple process. It starts with an observation, and
right.
that has to be turned into symbols, into knowledge for the rest of the time. And if you do that wrong, the rest of it's rubbish. You don't have science. But I know that could be enough for some aspects of what we're interested in. Like, hey, what mushrooms are growing in your neck of the woods? Well, you'd go out, you would describe them, you'd characterize them, you would take what you see and interpret, and take those symbols and leave it for the next person. So hopefully they can decipher it. And that's good. Now what's the next step? The next step is what no one wants to do. It's the work. It's taking measurements. It's boring, right? How, what color is it? What are the spores? Can I do any kind of more testing to it? And you find all these different ways to take measurements, and eventually that leads to your body of evidence. So what happens today is that I'll make a observation and knowledge base, but I'll take measurements and something else, but I'll pretend like I connected them, and I'll publish papers, and deceive, but I'll convince people that it's still valid. And it'll take years before someone calls my bluff. And this happens all the time in science. So what people actually observe and what they measure is not the same thing. So, and if you don't do that, that's rubbish science. It's a complete waste of time. And then the last part, this is the part where it's like the gift to humanity, is that you're going to create some kind of working model. It doesn't matter if it's perfect. It usually isn't. If it's 80% correct, that's phenomenal. But you make a working model, say, for example, okay, the human being really has two systems for energy in terms of, call it, food that we eat. We have fats and we have carbohydrates. The protein doesn't really play a big role. You're not supposed to burn protein for energy. It's fats and carbohydrates. So we come up with this model for the human being, the two energy system model. Is this perfect rendition for a human being? It's not, but this is what then allows you to build more complexity onto it, figure out what else am I observing to say it's not full model. So that's it for science. Observe, measure, predict. And as much as you want to go to the spiritual side, you're still in this realm, right? You can still observe, you can still measure, you predict. And now we're pushing the boundaries. And here, this isn't really clear cut yet for us today, but people are able either through substances get to a certain state of consciousness, and it's not all created equal for us. Some of us are a lot more, let's say, talented in holding our consciousness at a certain mental state. And what is starting to become extremely fascinating is that two people can meet on a mental plane. So now you have to understand that we might be stuck here physically, what we call physically in a certain dimensional space, but it doesn't mean that we can't access, call it, a lot more of what our reality entails. And I would throw as a scientist, people use this word physically with such confidence, but I would say it's actually very hard to define, because right now you are around 70 trillion cells, and those cells are turning over every day. So you're something new every minute. Now, if you know the chemical formula for breathing, you take oxygen in. That oxygen doesn't become carbon dioxide. That oxygen becomes water. And then you take your fat, you take your sugars, you oxidize them, and you breathe out carbon dioxide. And be like, okay, yeah, so what? What's the big deal then? Well, no, you're taking the outside world, converting it into you, and taking bits of you and putting it back in the outside world. You're constantly in a state of change. So this physical is very temporary. It's transient, right? And in the Orthodox Christianity, their idea for spiritual and physical, there's no difference. And so funny enough, in science, we know this chemical formula. Like, oh, wait a minute. Through breathing, you're actually really connected to the outside world. You're connected to the tree. You're connected to all these things. And that's one very easy example we can chemically follow. There's lots of others. But now when you look at the word spiritual, what's the root of the word spiritual? Spirit.
Spirit. Mm-hmm.
And in science, where do we have that? Respiration. Spire, it's to breathe. So breathing is this very important aspect in one, if you wanted to astral project. Two, if you wanted to help regulate your mental state, your emotions, it's all through breathing. You send so you send jet fighter the way they control their consciousness, they don't pass out, through breathing. Deep sea divers, how do you control your free divers, how do you control your lung capacity so you don't blow out your ears? Through breathing. So
nah, like everything you shared was very useful. Like that's why I'm just right here, like wow, because like I know you said you mentioned proteins. I usually take proteins like when I'm done working out. And another thing you touched on, because you touched on a lot of useful information, and thank you for the two viewers who's viewing in, getting this knowledge, because I'm sitting here learning too, because my man is a scientist. I look at you like a scientist. Another thing you mentioned, I did like 1 or 2 times when I came on my spiritual journey, was astro project. Can you touch a little more on that, like so people can know what that really is? Because from my knowledge, like my body was laying there, but it's like my spirit left my body and I seen it leaving my body and I was in other places. So can you touch on a little bit of that?
yeah, absolutely. So I'll just say, to help wrangle in individuals to be like, oh, what is he talking about? Is this even real? The CIA wouldn't spend, I would say, multi-million into the billions over the years to have a group dedicated to this division if it wasn't a thing.
Right.
So just where is this information in science? Can I pull it up in a journal? No, you can't. Can you go to an institute that will help you astral project? Yes, they're there. So it's not as if you leave your body and you can see in real time perfectly everything that's going to happen. There's something that happens where there's a distortion, and I can't tell you exactly what it is because I'm a novice when it comes to be able to understand this, call it bridge of very difficult to measure, right? But it's there. Someone can say, hey, my wife is going to enter the room in about a few minutes and she's going to see my body on the couch. And the next person that enters the room is their wife. Okay, that tells you that there is some level of, hey, they're connected to still what they're observing in front of them. But there's so many different, call it interpretations of what people share, that I think it gets diluted. And I think that's a little bit of what pushes people away from understanding and exploring it, because they feel like, okay, it's not a real skill that I can attain. But I would say the exact opposite, where I'm a little bit, how'd you say, if I didn't have my family around me or my wife, my head would be so far in the clouds, I don't think I'd still be on planet Earth. Like it's, I'm that type of individual where I can visualize the molecules, I can visualize the DNA. That's why I was successful in my laboratory experiments. Things that aren't there for us to interact with, there's an ability for us to be able to connect with. And I myself had multiple experiences where I've projected on my body, but I have a very funny story where every time I would turn around and see myself. And if you're familiar with that Matrix scene where Neo enters and he sees the guy that protects the Oracle, the Asian guy in the white suit, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Sir, I love Matrix. I've seen all of them. Let's go.
And so when he sees him, he's golden in the green background. So for people, I guess, that haven't seen the movie, the green matrix has the numbers, but when he sees this program, it's golden. So every time I've astral projected, I would see my body and I would be like, oh my God, look at this thing. It's so complicated. And I am in love with human biology, right? I see you, I think, man, God took a little extra time, sketching you out because you're gorgeous, right? And so it just reinforced my, I think, path in life to be, I came here, one, to learn more about what is the human body. And, my mission is to make sure you're doing good, right? Like I would like for your health to be top notch, because I'm interested to know, what did you dream? What's the boundaries of our understanding? What's the boundaries of our limits? And I think we're operating very, 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 I call it bare minimum right now. And I see that, cold exposure is one way in which I've transformed my health. And, we can touch on that, but, the cold exposure is a great example of, in my textbooks, when I learned it, hey, you get hypothermia in 3 minutes. Well, I've been in again, 2-degree water for 15 minutes. Why? Because over the last decade and a half, I've practiced. I've gone in there for a minute. Then I'm not a hero. I go in a minute for 5 seconds, minute 10 seconds, minute 15. My physiology adapts. Heck, I can actively do something to keep my mental state, to keep my body producing the heat. And so, this is just like a scratch of the surface. I would say it's a very somatic, it's a very body, very physical practice that you can do. Incredibly mental challenge, but you just see like, okay, well, the textbook was wrong. And the textbook's wrong a lot more than, well, this is what people hire me for. Like, we're doing audit, right?
Right. Like, it say you can die from hypothermia. It's just like I said in text, like if you be in the water a certain amount of time. But as I got older, I got to looking at, like, for instance, like people that play basketball in the NBA, how they sit in ice water just to, I guess, I don't know why they do it, but I know it's to help, I'm gonna say balance, but it helps like to calm their muscles down when they have a long game or a long day. So a lot of stuff I didn't agree with in the books. Like, how when you were a child and you read something in the book, you be like, and as you get older, you probably circle back around, you be like, this don't make no sense. Like, so man, bro, but keep going, man. Like I'm running, bro, from you. Like, right. That's why I'm just listening.
Right. So, to the idea of the actual projection, I do think it's something that maybe not every single person is inclined to do. It's like a mental ability. And now as I'm coming, I guess a lot more involved in dealing with individuals, looking through biology, in which it's not that easy to access. I'm learning things such as some individuals can't hold an image in their head. I'm like, wow, that's bizarre for me to even fathom, because I can do that easily. Heck, my eyesight's terrible in the real world, but I can visualize anything. I can rotate the object. It's not a problem. But it's not until you start asking the questions and you start sharing until you realize, like, no, wait a minute, I'm way different than what I initially thought. And I think my mom had a big part to play with this, because as a kid, every time I'd wake up, she'd always be like, "Oh, what'd you dream?" And I'd tell her, "Oh, I was Spider-Man," or, "Oh, I was underwater," or, "I was a dolphin," or, I was a big jaguar." One time I was the evil guy. I was a barbarian, and I killed people, and I woke up and I felt awful. So people think, like, oh, dreams aren't, call it as a big part of your life. I woke up with emotion in my body, with regret. I was sweating, like that's a massive physical response to a dream. So, this is, I think, where it's very important for people to recognize that if somebody can dissuade you from engaging in life, they in a way did you a service. It's like, if I can talk you out of doing a podcast, then you should be doing podcasts. You're good. You're welcome. But if I try to dissuade you from doing podcasts, like, man, get out of here. Who are you? Fantastic. It just reinforced who you are and what you're doing, and that you're on the right path, that you're on the right track. And so when people want to give up these ideas, you can see how arrogant people are, especially medical field, the health fields, is because they're trying to protect their vested interests. Right. And a lot of times when people are like, well, there's no evidence for that, what they really mean to say is that I haven't looked whether there's evidence for that.
What's that? Let me just say something, bro, about the medical field. Like, I don't got nothing against the people that gotta go to the doctor. Me, I'm not really a fond of FDA-approved medicine. I'm more on like holistic side. Like, if you eat the right foods or put the right things in your body, you can heal your body. And when you go to a doctor, it's like they don't know what's wrong with you. Me personally, you gotta tell them what's wrong with you, or they ask what's wrong with me, so they don't really know what's wrong with you. Like, if you just, like I said, you eat the right things, put the right things in your body, you will know when your body off. You will know. That's all I just want to throw that in there, bro. Keep going. Like, this is.
Yeah, so for sure. So, a big part of what I do is also make people better patients, because if they understand what the medical system's there for, then you don't have to harp on it. Like, it's I know it's called healthcare, but really they do an incredible job of sick care, and it is an impossible job. Like, how can the doctor know out of the infinite amount of chemicals we're exposed to today? There's no civilization ever in existence on this planet that's been exposed to more toxic, more biologically damaging substances than us.
Right.
And so you're going to go into a hospital I've helped doctors, the med students learn anatomy. I see, what they have to do. Like, good luck on their plate of everything else, trying to teach them, call it nutrition, physical exercise. They got like 6 to 10 minutes to hang out with you to quickly give you something to stabilize you so you don't die. Now, when you view the healthcare system in that regard, be like, okay, yeah, it's a critical care system. People opt in to take drugs for life, right? And here's an example. It's especially with my father's generation. He took a blood pressure medication, and he took it for years for secret. He didn't want to tell me, right? And your mom's like, okay, finally she spilled the beans, right? He hit me.
Let me say something on the blood pressure medicine, bro. Like, years ago, I used to work at a job. I used to do like a lot of warehouse work, and that's why I say we just can flow, because I used to work at a warehouse, and I guess the heat and and like warehouse is like assembly line work. It gets so hot in there, so I guess my blood pressure spiked so high, like I got dizzy, lightheaded, almost passed out, and I don't know what blood pressure medicine they prescribed me to. But they was like, it's gonna spike your blood pressure, make it go high. I'm saying in my head, like, I took it, bro. No bullshit, bro. I took this pill one time, and it spiked my blood pressure so high. The next day, I flushed all them pills down the toilet, bro. And Mr. Daniel, I held my high blood pressure from celery seed that you get from the store and tea. I drunk that for like a month straight, and I haven't had, and this happened like maybe a few years ago. I want to say like 3, and I haven't had high blood pressure ever since. So that's why I say I'm more on the holistic side of things. The doctor can prescribe you this medicine, But all this medicine got side effects. That side effect got a side effect. You got to take this for that side effect. Then you got to take this for that side effect. And about time you look around, you taking 1,000 pills.
You're
medicine. Go ahead, bro.
yeah, for sure. So I mean, it's how to say it like this. You go in, hey, I have high blood pressure. You get a blood pressure medication. You're gonna get another problem, like you said, side effect. But it's very predictable, right? Because help me avoid too hard to not to go too much into the jargon, but the heart's a pump. So if you take a drug, this incredible thing that overrides the biological pathways is saying, hey, you can't pump as hard. What's going to be the consequence? Because it's getting a signal to pump hard for a reason. It's not just doing it because hey, fuck it, I need to pump hard. There's a signal that's sending. There's a reason why it's pumping hard. Right. So if you drug it to say pump weaker, what happens to the heart?
Let's slow down and it's gonna get weaker. Like it's not gonna pump how it's supposed to. That's why I'm taking medicine.
That's exactly.
And you know what's the funny thing about it? People taking these medicines, like, look, I'm not against nobody who take medicine, but when they bring all these new medicines out, they tell you the side effects. And people will still go run and take this. Like, I'm against medicine just because, like, my mama, rest her soul, she an ancestor. She was a high level diabetic. And I seen all the medicine she had to take. Like, she was taking so much medicine, I used to deliver the medicine to her. And then sometimes the sign for when I stayed with her. But I'm looking at all this medicine she's taking, high blood pressure medicine, tramadol, this, that, all them side effects. And truth be told, bro, I think all the medicine she took took my mom away from us.
Yeah. So very difficult once you start layering on, right? Like, hey, like you said, hey, it gets weaker. Absolutely. So then the valves don't pump as hard. Now you need another drug because you have a heart palpitation. You thin out the blood. Okay, now the blood's thinned out. Okay, you need to support the liver. Okay, now you're having pains. Here's a pain. It's exactly like that. You kind of stack on this pyramid in which it's not easy now to figure out what to take off. And I'm not so much against drugs, these pharmaceuticals. What I just tell people, caution not to go down that route. Because if you have high blood pressure and, like my dad, he works like an ox and he didn't want to do anything else in order to deal with it. And once I found out, I told him what the consequences are going to be. And within 4 years, it manifested. And so I'm like, Dad, I told you, right? And then the doctor's like, here's a blood thinner. I'm like, Dad, you're not allowed to take this. This is what you're going to do instead. And so it did take some time, but he's on zero meds. I got $1,000 worth of supplements, right? But whatever. I want to keep my dad around as best I can. But just to showcase, this information is in front of him the whole time, and he's still an individual that has to learn on his own skin, And so, how many of us have to learn our skin? Unfortunately, a lot. But if you have someone within your surroundings that's going through this, you're going to feel that emotion from them, and it'll hopefully get you to change. And so now I see individuals that tell me, hey, I see my dad died on 12 medication. I see my mom die, 12 medication. What do I have to do? What's going on? Why did this happen? How do I avoid this? Kind of like you said, okay, celery seeds is phenomenal. So there are things, these basic things in which we do, in which are necessary, are the real tax to life. Let's say before you came to planet Earth, there was a line and you're like, I'm excited. I'll get to have muscles and I'll feel this, pleasure sensation from running. It's getting boring, just floating around nebulous. There's a satisfaction with, the human form, right? Dopamine, which we use for reward centers, is the exact same neurotransmitter for your movement, right? Is that a coincidence? Is that, meant to be? Well, it's almost like nature has this joke of pleasure is so easily accessible for all of us. It's a way to teach you what you're supposed to be doing. And so what's one of those things? Movement is a must. Like there's no, you can't opt out. That's the real tax. You must move a little bit each day. It's not like, well, I'll do nothing for 23 hours and I'll work out for an hour. Right. And so this is where also your genetics play a role into it, but way less. And I'll just make a quick mention here for blood pressure, right? Like I am interested in race. I know this entire, call it mainstream or the elite individuals would like to place within our consciousness to get us fighting, but I'm genuinely interested in race, right? I'm different, you're different, and we can look at it through the molecular biology now to really tell us something unique about time on this planet, right? It tells us the history of our planet, not subjectively where someone's telling us, oh, the pyramids were made by a bunch of guys with, bronze chisels chiseling my stone. Like, oh yeah, I'm sure there was.
I don't
But,
agree with that.
no, right. But for your genetic background, you have to be careful with blood pressure and your kidneys. For Hispanics, for example, they are the one genotype that can abuse sugar the most before they get diabetes. And say the Asian, worst for alcohol. They have the least ability to deal with alcohol. Now, it's not true for every single person because biology throws in variation constantly, no matter where you're born, right? And so I think this is the part in which is also something you're not going to get attention with. You're like, well, what should I be more careful with? And so one of the simplest supplements that I can recommend, this is really from a bunch of doctors, right? And my skill is finding the smart guys on planet Earth and knowing, okay, they're saying the right thing. And so, iodine
I heard of that.
is one of the most, call it, depleted elements in our foods. And it also gets your thyroid to function properly. So if your thyroid doesn't function properly, your mood's going to be off. You're just going to be in a shitty mood. You're going to be fatigued all the time. Your metabolism, the way you interact with food, you eat something, you'll be like, oh, I'll put it to fat right away because your thyroid doesn't function as it should be. So now when you look at the genetic background, who can get away with the least amount of iodine? It's like the Celts, and it's like the UK guys, and then like the individuals in Nepal, like the high mountain folk. The majority of the rest of the planet, maybe some Midwestern, but they don't have, call it, as long of a lineage of being isolated. So everyone else really wants a lot of iodine in their diet, right? Like your genetic background, my genetic background, I'm Adriatic, Mediterranean boy. I need a lot of iodine. I can't get away with a little bit. And so you also can't smash iodine like you can, like other things. You have to take small amounts over a long period of time so your body can take it. And that's true. That's true for all minerals, actually. You can't take minerals quickly into the body. It'll make you it can harm you. And so you need to take it in slowly over a long period of time to let your body prepare, pull it in, know how to distribute it. There's actually fascinating from biology side, from what I love, connective tissue. It works really hard so that you don't mineralize yourself. So we have all these biological processes in order to keep us healthy that we don't really understand in terms of the everyday individual. And the doctors play this game. I wouldn't say doctors, that's not true. The informational system behind the doctors plays this game of like, well, let's keep most of this out of the schools. Let's keep this understanding out of the schools so that they have to pay for it. They have to seek it. And we can discredit anything that we're going to call alternative. And that started happening around the 1800s, right? So the 1800s, just like 1890s was really the flip from where you had individuals having the option then, do I want to go to a herbalist and get some Pyrex to help me have a fever and get over my flu? Or do I want to go to this new type of science-based doctor that had this incredible amount of money put behind them? And that was the last little bit of a generation that had the option to choose, where it wasn't as established. And you can see today where we're at, where if you practice anything close to in line with medicine, you're going to get, you're put in jail, right? It's not even a slap in the wrist. Like you will, you'll be incarcerated. So what trajectory, where our timeline leads, it does seem like people are waking up to understanding that, wait a minute, health is something that's universal. Health is something that should be practiced. And the way I see it, it's not like, hey, topple the medical system or the pharmaceuticals. No, learn how to use it. For some individual, the way I see it is people with a rare disease, they deserve the most amount of resources, right? We learn from them. All of this other stuff, it'll get, I think, eventually smoothened out where we realize, like, hey, we can't let someone else control our food and our food quality. We have to get back to being in charge of that. We can't eat stuff that has an insane amount of pesticides. We can't eat stuff that, is technically plastic. I can burn it, right? And it's not food for the soul, right?
For instance, I'm glad you said that, because like years ago, and I did some research, and I did this, I don't eat fast food, bro, because I look at it like good food, soul food, good cooking take time. Think about it. Fast food is cooked fast, so I'm telling you how it's processed. I didn't see people, and I didn't try to set a McDonald's fry on fire, bro. And go ahead,
Yeah. Yeah, so I've seen it on TikTok videos. Like obviously every part of the world has a little different access to things. But I saw a lady melt lettuce. Like she literally took a lighter and she melted her lettuce. And I'm thinking, like, what the hell's on that lettuce? Right? So
Right.
she's like, you know what? I've always been suspicious. My lettuce stays crisp for weeks in the fridge. It never rots. What's going on? Is this even food? And yeah, I think we're interesting. A very, I think we're at the bottom of the barrel. By the way, like I do think now is the upswing, and we're part of it. Just having a conversation, bringing to people's awareness, the just them understanding. Okay, when do I go to the doctor? How do I be a better patient? That's part of it. Because these systems are going to be there, and they're going to eventually be filled with individuals that can do a better job in terms of recognizing, like, okay, well, you came to me awful. Like, here's your stabilization drug. I don't want to give you another one right away. You change some stuff, and there'll be services, like me, like you or whoever else is doing this kind of stuff to help coach them on a little bit better health. But we're also in a state where I think people have given up, where, they're just struggling to survive. They've been squeezed by, call it, policies, by different kind of, bad decisions, but, sold out. And I do think that's being, the pendulum swinging back, and the food in which is, it's very simplest. Like nutrition is I think the individuals that say eat food that's alive, right? Eat whole food, eat fresh food, eat soul food, food that you have to cook and prepare. This is, in a very simple sense, the food is still alive. It has biodynamic molecules in there, right? It has this life force that's still in there, in a very, very simple sense. And so you want to ingest that. For the heavy duty science side of things, you can take something that you've, let's say, processed and preserved, and you can do what's called a metabolomics panel, right? So if you're familiar with that word, it's just metabolite, like serotonin's a metabolite, dopamine's a metabolite, and amino acids a metabolite. And what you can do is you can do a large panel that capture a lot of these molecules. Be like, okay, what's in here? So if you take a food that's very preserved or processed and you've done things to it, you can see that the panel isn't that interesting. It's very narrow with what's present there. Now you take something that's alive and you see, wow, there's so many more molecules here. It's so dynamic of what's going on. And you want to eat that. You want to ingest that. That's still now part of what helps you be a human being, because calories are super simple. It's never been easier in history to get calories. So what's the other part to nutrition we don't talk about? That's the most important, is the composition and the regulation that you need from the food. So the easiest one, omega-3. You eat omega-3s. You're not burning that for energy, right? What are you using it for? You're using it for your brain. You're using it to control your immune system. You're using it to make your membranes be more resilient. When you go into the cold, what does the cold do? It helps stimulate so that you can pull omega-3s from your blood into your cell membranes. What does that do for you now? Well, now you're not as sensitive to cold, which then translates into stress. Okay, stress comes to you from working in a heavy warehouse, or a hot warehouse. You're dealing with your, let's say, a contract. You're dealing with a very obnoxious client or obnoxious boss. You're dealing with, let's say, a very difficult time with kids. Maybe they're teenagers. Well, all this, when you have that soul food, when you have food that has these molecules in which, the food's alive, it makes you more resilient, right? It takes you from just, trucking along, surviving, to thriving, to be like, yeah, I can deal with the stress. And that's how you turn stress into strength, because every opportunity where we feel that, call it nervousness, the anxiety, the feeling like, oh my God, I need to do something. Well, that's your body saying, rise to the challenge. And the more that we go away from that, the more that we put mental problems for us, right? Where a guy just snaps and he's just angry at everyone. And I've been that. I've been the shitty dude a long time ago. And
We all have.
yeah, and very thankfully I had a good social structure around me, right? To just be like, well, you're acting like a little, like a kid, like what you doing? Like, you act right. And absolutely, the shame I felt was tremendous. But now imagine someone that wouldn't feel shame. So you tell them this, you try to bring them back to act right, and they're just like, whatever, and I don't know what the answer is, but I kind of take the very, like, call it like sports side or military side. Like sometimes someone needs an ass whooping, and maybe to help them humble, right? And so, I'm from I used to play water polo. I was in the Canadian team, and that really helped me in terms of having that bond, the brotherhood, where
Mhm.
when someone's being a little wiener, you sort of beat up on them, right? The whole team beats up on them, and then they're stronger for it. Now they come back and they can do that to the next guy, or they can help bring someone else up. And I do feel like now more than ever, when someone's unhappy, they can just isolate themselves, and now it's very difficult for them to be brought back to the fold. And this is something where I've transformed my way I coach people for health, where I would focus a lot on the information beforehand. I thought if I gave you the information, you would make all the right decisions. But people would still go back to, they call it the easy, the crap food that's loaded with seed oils that are just destroying your health. You know, the the cardiovascular disease, the metabolic disease. One of the worst things that's in our foods is the seed oils, like by far. Like less so than the sugar. The seed oils are high fructose corn syrup. Seed oils probably responsible for the vast majority of problems. But now when you have the information, why are people still making these bad choices for their health? And I realized, okay, well, these things that they're using, they're not the problem. They're a solution to something else that's inside them. This, call it like, well, they don't care enough about their health, their body at this moment. They really haven't hit rock bottom. And not everyone has, call it, the luxury when they hit rock bottom to have a whole boatload of resources to be like, okay, now I'll throw around my resources to get my health back. Usually, when they hit rock bottom, the resources are also not in the best spot, and so they don't climb back to, let's say, their best version of themselves. And this is where I think it's super important, is that everyone's in their own journey, right? And if someone's in a downward spiral, you got to just put your hands back. Eventually, be like, all right, that person's going down. But this is where maintaining those social structures, just checking in. It's like, hey man, how you doing, Marcus? Everything good? How are the kids? How's the wife? Are they doing all right? Just giving you the opportunity, like, yeah, everything's good, man. I'm handling it, no problem. Because as men, we don't like to burden others with our problems.
Right.
But when you're given yeah, we do, it's the truth. But when you're given the opportunity every once in a while to be like, yeah, okay, well, this guy's been through some shit. Like, let me share this with him. Knowing things intellectually is not the same as dealing with the emotion, right? You can think of emotions like something that needs to move through the body, and if it doesn't, it gets stuck. And this is my belief. Now, I separate belief and knowledge, right? Like, I don't believe in my parents. I know of my parents, right? But I believe that the vast majority of chronic diseases, right, are from a belief, and that belief is tied to an emotion. And when we no longer can feel, or get to the point where apathy is hidden, where we don't feel nothing no more, then we're at a state where the soul wants to eject. So it's like, this body is just, it's not responding. It's not taking action. It's thinking like there's no urgency, but there is urgency. Time is important. And so we get a disease to help bring awareness. Like, you got to make some difference. You got to make something. You got to make a move. You got to do something about this. You can't keep swallowing this emotion down and not and not dealing with it. It might be parents fighting when you're a kid, or you wanting something as a kid and you get neglected. Could have been you pushing forward on an idea, and your brothers and sisters just hammered you and you didn't know how to deal with it, right? And you got to forget. The biggest lesson, I think, is you got to forgive, right? But you're not forgiving and absolving the other individual's actions. You're forgiving so that you can release whatever resentment you have towards the adults that didn't know, the adults that weren't prepared enough, the adults that couldn't see the developmental steps, because we're not meant to be raised by two people. Very, I like to think of in terms of 12s, right? Like 4 out of 12 people, 3 out of 12 people, somewhere there would be very, very developmental oriented. Their outlook on life, the way they see things, they'll understand growth. They'll have an intuitive understanding of nature. Call it a high IQ of the natural world, without ever being taught anything, how materials work, how creatures develop, what creatures are meant to interact, which ones don't, biological functions. And so if you don't have that in your family, and you're a kid, and you're a smart kid, right? Kids are always smarter than their parents. And
And look, I ain't gonna lie, I agree with you. Like, when it comes to like technology, I don't know everything, but I have like a 16-year-old daughter, so she'll be 16 in May. And I say this girl is good with technology, like, cause I don't know, it seems like I guess every generation is like the ones behind us. It's like they learn a little more, or it's like a technology. Like when it comes to technology, like these kids are like I don't know what's in the food. They say you are what you eat, but man, these kids, these generation, the ones that want to learn, it's like they pick up on stuff fast. Like my daughter, she finna be 16, and this girl been an AB student her whole life. Like she go to school, do her work, right? She do her work and she be texting me. She do her work and lay down and watch Proud Family on her phone. Like this, she just gifted. Like she interprets stuff. Like I was smart in school, but some stuff I didn't get. Her, she got it all. Like
Yeah. I mean, it's meant to be that way, right? And but she's lucky she's got you as a dad, and you seem very much so developmental oriented, like seeing the world through growth, seeing change, seeing it's there. I mean, that ain't everyone. I would say that's, again, maybe that's a 30% individuals be that way. Now imagine both mom and dad aren't that, right? And you got no grandma, grandpa, right? And so, that's not a great place to be in terms of emotional development, right? And this is where I think now, as we enter this age, like, look, we're 2 time zones apart, yet we can connect. And I'm having a great time here chatting with you, right? My emotions are through the roof. I'm gonna be high.
You shared a lot of information, brother. But look, everybody know where I'm from. I'm from Illinois, but I say in Texas now. A lot of people don't know. Like I met you on our app, and we spoke, bro. Let the people know where you originally from and where you at now.
Right. So I mean, I was born in Yugoslavia. Right, and that country don't exist anymore. So if people aren't aware, it's in Europe, just east of Italy. And Italy's got that little boot shape. You got the Adriatic little coastline, the sea, and then you have Yugoslavia there, which is now is Croatia, Serbia, Bosnia Herzegovina, Slovenia. That was all part of former Yugoslavia, Macedonia. And so, I got a head start in terms of like call it maturity. Right. And I think a lot of people in the States now are really catching up to, like what's going on in the world, and when I say catching up, I mean, I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but, like as a 4 or 5 year old, you got to figure out like, oh my God, there's war. I got to get the hell out of here. What happened to this country? And then, I spent my lifetime, for a large part of it, I just hated religion. I blame religion as like the reason for the fall of the country. And, then I picked up a book, started asking questions. I let the emotions go, and I realized, no, wait a minute. Like, in Catholic, Christian, Muslim, they mostly have the same, call it big ideas, right? Like, don't kill, be nice, be impeccable with your word. I'm paraphrasing here, but it's all the texts. Doesn't matter what you want to go. Taoism, Buddhism, those aren't really religions. They're more, ways of life. Hindu, they all have very similar ways in how a human being needs to behave, right? In order not to get trapped with, like what we're talking about, these emotional pitfalls in which destroy our health, right? And so it got me extremely cynical. Let's be honest. I was extremely cynical of the world, and I had this view of like, okay, there's clear powers at hand that have a desire to have certain outcomes. And I think people are more and more aware of it, and especially with today's technology and the conversations and the information. Okay, the powers that be would like certain outcomes, and they work behind the scenes. They make war, and I'm for less war. I think the will of the common man. We want to have family. We want to have we want to protect. We want to build up kingdoms. That's what we would like to do, and so. I see as what technology gives us, it gives the will of the common man to be able to take hold on this planet, right? There's this commonality that doesn't matter what language you speak, doesn't matter where you're from, what's wrong. Like if you see someone beating a kid, harassing or abusing a kid, there's like a flood of rage that goes through us. Just it doesn't matter where you're from. Everyone, you're born that way when you call it a human being. It's in our genetics. And so, I do think this commonality is bringing us today. I don't know when it's going to take full force. I think we're on the trend up, but I'm glad to be a part of that. Where now I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and Canada's a nice place. It's a lot of like being polite, but there's a lot of let's say problems here. We have a massive mental health issue in Canada. and we don't do a good job of talking about it. We don't do a good job of supporting it. And I do see, Canada and North America. Canada's like mini America. We pretty much do everything worse than the States on all fronts. And I was in Wyoming for the last 2 years. I loved it. I felt like that was home for me in a great way. I've traveled around a good amount on the west side. So, I know there's jokes right now about Canada becoming 51st state. I doubt that would happen, but if it did, great. It just sort of bridges some of the, call it, challenges that we have as two separate countries. Though I saw my country I was born in no longer exist, right? No more of me are going to be born on the planet. And so, I have a different view of what countries are, right? Because I see biology in for my interest, right? The creation and the Serbian guys, it's the same genetics. There's no difference. You can draw a border there if you like, and you can start changing dialects. But genetically, they're close to identical, if not identical, right? They're literally 3 generations cousins. And so, these boundaries that we draw, who's drawing them? What are the political incentives? Like how far does that remove us from doing what I think is very important, where we're bridging a commonality of, I would say a clear human charter. I think we have it on the books, like no slavery allowed. And I think people don't realize that slavery has been part of human history, right? It's not like a small chapter. Every part of the world has been battling it, and if you take a look, some of the big wars that are on the books, people call it the holy wars. They were over slavery, right? They were over owning other individuals. And this might be, call it the chapter for Earth, where we need to come together to realize like this isn't what's going to happen. This isn't what's going to go forward. And we need to not just have it in the books, but not put it into practice. Because, you can capture a human being in lots of different ways. And so what I see today with our food, with, fear-based programming, is that it's no longer that you're just going to have someone tell them, hey, you're this. You're going to put people in a place, smart people, in which they're going to be living a life representative of no freedom, and not knowing it. They've voluntarily put themselves in that state. And I don't think the human spirit does well there, right? Like when I see these individuals, I love the comeback story, where the individual is in that state. They're in their corporate, little bubble. And eventually they say, hey, I want different. I want to stop having the same think as everybody else around me. I have this feeling there's something wrong, and they break free from that. And funny enough, when they look back and they tell their, let's say old colleagues, like, oh, I have this different outlook, they're hated. They're given a lot of flack, like, oh, how could you think that? Or you're going to destroy our society, whatnot. And again, I think there's a purpose to that. There's like this, I guess I'm going a lot more on the spiritual side of things, but there's this sort of ebb and flow of, again, if you're pushed, do you just simply collapse, or do you recognize like, no, I'll stand higher. I can see this force for what it is, and it's trying to dissuade me from pursuing a certain type of, call it, understanding of what freedom is. And I think it's very simple. Like, don't do harm to other people. I think people, when I say freedom, people also try and spin it so it's very evil or it's going to cause problems. It's like, no, you still want, you can't do trade, you can't do business if you're not on good terms with people. And no one wants society to completely erode. It's the opposite. You want society to build and thrive in such a way where the individual has ownership and stakes in the world around them. And the more you take that away, the more you're going to see problems, right? Like communism is not a good outcome. You can't have somebody else decide how to redistribute everything for everyone else. There has to be a game in which, hey, I put in effort, my effort's rewarded based off of the value I bring to the table, right? And so, I think these are big parts that cause a lot of, call it, tension for men. It's us that are responsible to really uphold pillars of society, and we don't know where to go battle. Because if it was just go to battle, that's easy. Pick up something, pick up a stick, go poke the other guy. Those were easy times, right? No joke. Those are easy times. It's fucking impossible. You don't even know who you're battling. Who's the bad guy? Who's doing this to you? Are they in another country? Do they speak another language? How did they get into our systems? Why are they pushing? Where's my wealth going? Why can't I acquire wealth? Is it being disseminated to other places? And I think these are all the questions that are call it also causing the health problems. So, bringing it back to the basics of health is that these are all the emotional problems you're dealing with, and you're not dealing with them alone, right? I guess that's what I was saying. So I bring all this stuff up, not that there's the doom and gloom. The reality is that, welcome to the party. You decided to, let's say you decided to come here on planet Earth at this time because, hey, that'd be a fun journey to play this game of seeking, building up, gaining this identity for what it is to be a human being. And the identity of the human being is someone that has compassion. And now, if you see and you understand that, okay, the vast majority of human beings have compassion, how do you manipulate that to get bad outcomes, right? And there's a proverb that says, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. And I say, oh man, I see that all the time in health. People think, oh, I'm doing something really good here. I'm helping them with this treatment. Now you're just killing them faster, right? Because in an easy example, right? Like you see a lot of the cancer institutes, ones that are quite lagging behind. They'll feed the vast majority of what they get is refined starch, a pudding, an apple that's apple pudding with lots of sugar. So they're just getting a food that's going to help cancer skyrocket, right? But they'll get all these drugs to help inhibit it, and they'll get chemo, and all these things, which that's one way to tackle it. But you're still, why are you still giving them the metabolism to push cancer? So this is where it's a backwards approach, but some institutes have come a long way, right? And so, yeah, man. So this is the the ideas of health. I think kind of you don't talk about this, right? You just talk. Here's the liver. That's great, and I could talk more about the liver, right? Obviously, you got to incorporate things in which allow your liver to clean your blood. But I've seen a lot of blood work, so people will come and give me very big panels of blood work. And it's very difficult sometimes to be able to attribute what's going on in their health to just very simple actions, because there's this funny game in biology where for one person it might give them diarrhea, another person is going to make them constipated. And you're like, it's like, wow, that's the exact opposite response. And so you might see something where it's just how the compensation happens, and to understand, like, okay, well, what can you do about it? What's the right thing? Right? What's the right interpretation? The emotional component is one that, you don't have in a big science, textbook to figure out. It's really case by case. You have to hear from people. You have to learn from their experiences. Mm-hmm. And this is where the end of one science comes out. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but, in exercise physiology, which is, Copenhagen, Denmark does a big, Norway also too. They do a lot of exercise physiology. And why I share this, because disease is pretty easy to study. Hey, you're a problem. I take your blood. Hey, look, this is high. Those things are probably related. But what does it mean if you're healthy? And so you look to exercise physiology. You look to the most fit individuals to try and understand what health is. And so when you look at the molecular aspects of health, you see that the individual doesn't have the same responses anymore. Mm-hmm. They're more resilient. Their whole entire system changes and adapts the way that it's gonna respond to any kind of challenge. So yeah, now I'm sort of going, lots of different ways to try and throw, I guess, a lot of value for people. But
it's good, bro. Like everything you're showing is good, because 9 times out of 10, they not teaching you this in school. So I'm glad you're sharing this, bro. Like, it's some useful information, bro.
Yeah, the interpretation behind what's going on in your blood, I guess the point is it's a lot more difficult. It's a lot more nuanced, and it can mean a lot more things. And this is where I think it's very important to get interested with what's there and share it. This is where I do love the molecular biology revolution that we're in, and all the biotech. Whenever you get a test, if it's a biological age or something like that, the company has to be very close, or very, call it like, careful with what it tells you, right? They have liability. They have to kind of abide by all these rules and laws. So you miss out on a lot of cool information about yourself. Whereas, when you come to speak with someone like myself, I can get into the nitty gritty. I can ask you more questions, and we can pull out, what's unique about you, and maybe tie things in which no one else would call it, say, bring to your attention, because, like the emotional component isn't talked about. But it's very simple, and people are like, okay, well, how does that manifest? How does that look? Like, if you're afraid of snakes, And I'm not saying you are, but like I'd say I'm afraid of snakes.
No, I love snakes, bro. I don't
There
mean
you
like I used to catch them when I was little. Like I used to catch snakes, bro. Like
All right.
when I stayed up in Belleville, Illinois, like years ago, I was young. We had a pipeline, and my favorite time of the day is when I used to watch the snake eat the mice. Like I used to be so fascinated by it. But I like snakes, bro.
All right. So here, all right, we're awesome. So here's an example. So you and then somebody else next to you who's afraid of a snake, and both of you see a rope on the ground. And so you first think like, oh, is that a snake? And you get excited. What's your blood have? Oh, it has a little bit of adrenaline, epinephrine. You get some dopamine going. You're like, oh, cool. Like I'm excited. The person next to you, right? So there's the emotion, right? And it's not even a snake. It's just the perspective, just a thought. The idea that that's a snake has caused your blood chemistry to change. So when people are like, well, how does your belief affect you physically? There you go. It's a very easy way to how to affect physically. Now the person next to you is afraid of snakes. Again, they see the rope, they think snake, and all of a sudden their blood is acute stress response. Oh my goodness, all the signals, heart rate, I'm terrified. You see the inflammatory signal come up. And so that's just the perception of something that they thought they were afraid of. You see? So fear is one of the easiest ones to showcase from the science side of things. Like, okay, here's the change, here's the physical changes. But now we can think, okay, what about guilt? What about shame? What about grief? What about lies that you tell yourself, not other people, but yourself? Does that now cause your blood chemistry to change? Does that cause some tissue in your body, some organ to now collect this response that's happening in your blood? Does that cause a problem or pain? And I would very much so put it forward that this is the next area where absolutely is the case for healing and understanding that this is something that you have to eventually get to. And cold exposure is one way to really flush the body and the system. And then when you're there, when you're lying, you're experiencing all these sensations afterwards, you might feel like a twitch in somewhere in your viscera. Maybe it's in your back where your kidneys are. Maybe it's really close to your heart. Maybe it's in your diaphragm. And these are these sensations, these healing processes that are trying to move through what I would say is emotional, call it, things that we've packed down. And so there's really, I think, two ways to approach it, right? Either you approach it through something like that, like somatic work, body work, like cold, like breath work, like, different types of exercise that really stimulate that portion of the organ so it can flush out. Or we go the other way, right? We go through the mental portion where we do a thing called praxis. We repeat something constantly, right? Things don't change unless you change, right? I think that's Jim Rohn's, the motivational speaker from back in the day.
Boy, I know about Jim Rohns. I listen to Jim Rohns every day. He was like, man, bro, that's funny you mentioned it, but I play Jim Rohns every day, all day. Like he of one of my like favorite motivational speakers, and he not even here no more, but his message still touch people today. And he always say, people say when to start. Like he say, it's never a right time to start until you start.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love Jim Rohns. Keep going. That's crazy, bro. It's one of my favorites.
So yeah, that's one of my quotes I use personally, right? For things to change, you've got to change. Yeah, right. So, and that's the idea of praxis. That's why I bring it up. And this idea that, okay, I can say those words, and I've said those words a lot of times, and they're just hollow. And then nothing, no response, no change. And then the emotion comes up like, oh man, I should be doing something else. Like I got to stop reading here. Sure, everyone's like reading's good. Yeah, but that's all I do. I read. I got to do something else. I got to build a business. I got to find a wife. I got to do, and then I say, for things to change, you've got to change. And now that repetition, this is something I've held on to, puts me in a state where, okay, let's go do something. I don't know what, but I'm going to go change it up. I'm going to go do something. I'm going to start engaging and change my patterns of my behavior. And this idea of this top-down approach is what I'm talking about, of connecting with your emotions. That's something it's your responsibility. It's your gift. You're given the sixth sense is mind. And so use your sixth sense mind in order to cultivate a way in which you have better connection with your emotions, because the centurions, the people making to 100 years old, oh, they're phenomenal with it. It's not like they don't get angry. It's not like they don't get pissed off at you, but they're not going to lose any sleep over it. And they're going to articulate very well. They may poke fun at you or just cuss you out right away. Be like, hey, you don't behave like that. Don't do that. They're extremely in tune with their emotions. And so for us that, again, let's say we have all these challenges today, because what I was kind of getting at before with the state of the world is that you don't know where to go to battle, right? The psychological, the spiritual war that we're on, how are you going to handle it? Well, you're going to handle it by just living the best possible life that you can. That's how you say, screw you, the fuck you. I'm going to live a phenomenal life and just watch me. And by shining, you're going to show other people how to do it. And that's going to also mean practical things, right? We're going to deal with lawsuits. We're going to deal with building businesses. And then you might be the individual that paves the way for, for the next, call it guy or girl to step in. And so the same thing with your health. When, I recognize later in my life, like when I sit in a sauna, I sit cross-legged, right? I sit upright just because my body punishes me if I don't take care of my posture. I get terrible pains. And so I noticed, like when I come into a spot, people change the posture, right? Like they sit more upright. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny. I wonder if that was me. I'm just being egotistical. It can't be. And then I recognized when I started working in different places, like one of my bosses, he was pretty overweight. And within 6 months it's not like he asked me specifically, but throughout time, like, oh, Daniel, what you do in the past, and you had some conversations. And so he started walking every morning, every lunchtime, every evening. He dropped like 40 pounds. And so he's been unhealthy for about, all his adult life, and then I come into the equation and I started realizing, okay, maybe I do have something to do with it. And then eventually people are like, dang, what the fuck? Of course you do. When I see you don't shut up about things that are good for you. You laugh. You're always in a good mood. Even when you're pissed off, you make jokes about, the scenario. You're very easy to be around. You're always supportive and like, oh, okay, I guess. Yeah. So, I get that's what I was doing. I was doing it because that's how my father taught me. Like, if you're going to do something, do the best you can. Otherwise, go sleep. Go do something else.
Just like Nike do it. But now, for us, you touched on about walking. Like I just walked this rise, and walking it will lower your blood pressure. A lot of people don't know that, but if you walk every day for like 10, 15 minutes, like, cause daily, like I have a routine every day. Like I'm getting back into the routine of walking every rise, but like every day I do 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, and 50 calf rides. Like you said in the beginning of this exercise, I mean, that's an exercise. In the beginning of this message, you said your body gotta stay active. If you don't, it's gonna lock up on you. And I say this, like when a lot of people retire from their job and they just sit around, that's how they get old and die. But like I know a lot of people that's my elders that retire from their job and they still out there working out. They still get it in. Like when I be riding through San Antonio, Texas, I see so many elder couples like still out there walking their dog, walking with their spouse, because they know if you keep your body active, you're gonna live longer and you're gonna lower your blood pressure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the definition of death is the cessation of movement. And that definition applies at every molecular level. So every layer from molecule to cell to tissue to organ to us at the gross level. So movement's a must. And it's funny you say walking because that is enough, right? So people that make it to 100, walking is enough. And again, you want to do that, morning, midday, evening. It's not like, I do nothing and then just a little bit, and it doesn't have to be too much, right? And but it's not what I do advocate for what you're doing, right? The push-ups, doing some type of strength training, because it's fine if you make it, later in life, that's one thing, but it does feel good to be like competent, right? To be strong. It feels good to be strong. It's just that simple, right? And it's just a mental thing of, do you want to partake in this type of action? And that's what's going to be when you're 80, right? So there's one gentleman here I learned a lot from since I was, in my early 20s. I'm 36 now. So in my early 20s when I was doing the pursuit of the...
I'm 38, so we ain't too far from age.
Right on, yeah. And so his name is Michael Kogan, and he's a pioneer. He's one of the scientists that, again, he fought the food pyramid. I don't know if you remember the original ones, like, eat cereals and stuff at the bottom.
Yeah. So you need to grain. Yeah.
So him and a boatload of actually, a lot of I would say honest scientists at the time. They're like, oh, this is rubbish. This is bought and paid for science, or I don't know if you even call it science, but I learned from him, and this man at in his age, 70s, 80s, he stands in a Bosu ball, holding a dumbbell, giving you a lecture for 45 minutes an hour. And I'm thinking like, man, that's not how, I see 80-year-olds, I see 70-year-olds. That's not what I see. So that doesn't mean he's the anomaly. No, you can do exactly what he did. He said he did everything wrong until he figured it out, right? As he learned through life. So imagine starting off with his knowledge, in which you can read his books, you work with guys like me. If you don't like reading, you just want the quick access. You can start from very early age doing the right thing, right? And so at age 80, you can still have a boner, you can still have sex, you can still enjoy life. You don't have to take this, call it normative understanding or approach to it, right? You've been given an incredible amount of gifts, and as cruel as it sounds, if you don't use the gifts God gave you, He'll take it away and give it to someone else.
I tell people that, like, if you don't, I say it all the time. People look at me like me crazy. Like I say, I'm on a whole different spiritual journey. Like, I follow the 42 laws of my head. My head is basically balance, peace, harmony. I follow what's in Egypt. That's like, I don't know, that's what I'm drawn to. But it's one story I can remember particular in the Bible, and I used to follow it. I used to read it. But the talents, or he gave this person this amount, and he told them, like, one of them basically buried the money instead of going out there and flipping it. And I look at it like this, like, them was different talents they had. Like me, I'm an author, I'm a podcast, I'm for to launch a clothing line. I feel like if I don't put my thoughts on paper, or if I don't do no podcast, over time, I'm not gonna be interested in it no more. And I'm just gonna let it collect dust. But me, I love podcasts, and I love bringing amazing people on like you, sharing your story, man. Like, this is amazing, bro. Like, keep going, bro. I ain't got no. Yeah. Keep going.
So I was gonna, I found, I don't know if you found the same thing, but I found people that are interested, and it doesn't matter what. If they're interested, they're interesting, and that's always the case. If they're interested in ancient Egypt, I love it. I can't wait to sit and hear what they've got to, share. If they're interested even in bugs, I'm like, okay, yeah, tell me what you see in bugs. And, and this is one challenge I've had quite a bit, where, I interact with men in which think they know, and like I've spent, 2 decades studying biology, and I would say, I feel like I barely know anything. Do you know what I mean? Even though I can tell you about genes, I can help doctors, evaluate right. And I feel like I don't yet. When I talk to some of these guys and they're saying things wrong, I'm thinking like, man, how are you so confident? And a little bit of information. Don't you understand the ocean that's out there? It's like you're splashing around in a puddle, not realizing that you're just gonna take 2 more steps over the beach to realize that there's an ocean. And so, they're not interested. Right. They're almost like they're safeguarding their little bit of knowledge, in terms of protecting their own safety. They're not comfortable even looking out or knowing what to ask. And I always had trouble. How do I bridge that? How do I tell this person, or how do I bring it to their awareness? Hey, man, you'd be way better off if you're curious. Hey, you'll gain a lot more insights. You'll gain a lot more wealth in the long run if you're more curious, if you ask questions. Like you're sitting next to a scientist. You just ask a question, and you're going to get a pot of gold here that you can act on. And heck, you can even just share your own, call it personal experience, and I can work with you to kind of take the next steps. But I always found that, the individuals that could benefit the most from, what's being said are usually the ones that won't even tune in, right? They're the ones that are already on a path in which, they're until they get slapped with reality, until something bad happens, they're not going to, change their tune. So how do we get to that kind of, call it, what's the trick? Have you experienced that? Have you had some kind of success in being able to bring, like, hey man, why aren't you asking more questions? Like, is there some kind of trick you could give me? Like, how do I get to that? How do I get that out of people?
Right now, I ain't gonna even lie, like, there's people like that, they are stuck in their ways, bro. Like, when you got somebody just stuck in their ways, think they know it all, they not gonna never be open to accept information. Like me, I know a wealth of knowledge, and if you want to apply that knowledge, it don't mean nothing. But I don't know everything, so that's why when I heard something new, I'm like a kid in a candy store for the first time, or getting that first sucker, or cause I love knowledge. Like I love learning. My brain is like a sponge. It soaks stuff up, and I like hearing new stuff. Like the stuff you speaking on, bro. I know majority of it, like just off the terms, but like you went past the surface level and went down there you went like below the sea level. Basically, what I'm saying. Yeah, people like that, they just
Right.
stuck in their own ways, bro. They don't want
Yeah.
to learn nothing.
Yeah, no, fair, right? I always feel like there's got to be some kind of olive branch or seed to be able to, throw their way, and maybe it's just as simple as, "Hey, you seem like you're stuck in your ways," or it's like, "Hey, seems like you know enough, you're not interested anymore." Just to kind of jab them, to kind of nudge them in the right direction, right? I do feel like as a brotherhood, we're responsible to having kind of cheeky ways to kind of know how to play with the energies to inspire that. And the reason I say that, kind of going back again to the theme of the basics of health that people don't teach, is that this state of mind, this like the curious, people often call it childlike. It falls into this big idea of mood and temperament. So this is something in which you can get at from the science side of things, where you can trace, call it disease, or you can trace outcomes for health based off of just the mood and temperament the person's in. And so it's so critical to your lifespan and health span. So how long you're going to have health before you get a problem, and how long you're actually going to live. Where the best way I can say for individuals that have a mood and temperament that really lasts a lifetime is, I would say, religious without the religion. They didn't get bogged down by any particular idea or belief, where I think beliefs are quite dangerous. When I see the disease, I don't know if I mentioned already, the belief can be the problem to the disease to begin with. Just low sugar, just low alcohol, kind of for examples. But these individuals that I'm fascinated with how their mood and temperament is almost always they poke jokes at you. They see you and they want to make you laugh. They want to bring about some joy into the scenario. And this idea of mood and temperament, this curiosity, this childlike nature, it does transfer into this idea of growth versus fixed mindset. And when you're in a growth state, when you're hungry, it's actually very funny that this hunger, the hormone ghrelin that stimulates, hey, I'm hungry, also is involved with your sexual appetite, with your libido, right? And I do wonder how much does it play a role within your desire to learn more and this curiosity to grow and develop your brain, your mental understanding, your knowledge base. Is the fact that we're constantly shoving down food, or do we satiate this hormonal, this desire with other things, and so we don't give ourselves the ability to stay curious? I'm not sure. But I do know from the longevity side of things, that's one of the top, call it, factors for health span, right? Health span, lifespan. And so that mood and temperament, is one thing I don't think is touched on. The other part I'll just kind of point towards is this idea of recovery systems, right? Sleep is your best recovery system. If you interrupt your sleep, you're going to have a shit day the next day, right? And I think everyone's experienced that. You get smashed, you get drunk, you're awful the next day. Why? You didn't sleep.
I'm glad I'm alcohol and smoke free. Like I did it, but now I don't do nothing that I know that like that's gonna bring harm to my body. Like for instance, alcohol. It say on the bottle spirit. So you wonder when you consume that alcohol, you wonder why your whole mood has changed. Whether you happy, you crying, you telling everything, but at the end of the day, it's gonna affect your body. It's gonna affect you. So I don't. And another like a lot of stuff I don't do anymore because personal reasons. Like my mama, she was a high level diabetic taking all these medicines. I believe that's what she died. I had a great auntie named Brenda. She died from cirrhosis of the liver from drinking. The doctor told her, if you drink any more alcohol, you're gonna die. She thought they was playing. She went home and grabbed her a tall can. I think it was Bush. Bitch, you should have came home. That's my acronym for Bush. Bitch, you should have came home. She died from that. So that's why I don't like doing nothing like that no more. Like I don't like drinking, smoking. I smoke cigarettes, Blackie Miles. I don't do none of that no more just because I even did X pills, bro, in the past. I even drunk promethazine, lean. But I done seen people around me who was croaking and dying from this stuff. So I was like, you know what? I don't want none of this no more. Cause know how the commercials come on. It was like the smoke commercials, like if you do this, you're gonna get cancer, or whatever. And I used to go soon as listen to the commercial. I used to just go right back smoking a cigarette. But now I feel good to just be sober and high off life, bro.
So I would say, like, what changed in your life? Like, what filled that? Like I think I mentioned before, like cigarettes, alcohol. That's not the problem. That's the solution to something internal that is a lack of connection with call it
Yeah.
your life. So what failed? What changed? What did you connect with that made it so that, like, hey, I don't need this stuff anymore?
I just gotta listen to like Jim Rohn's, like, and before I touch on this, like, it's like that's people way of running away from their problem. And that's what I used to do, smoke and drink just to cope myself from what I'm reality. But once you sober up, you still gotta deal with that problem. You still gotta face reality. And me, I was like, I don't want to do this no more, because after I sober up, after I spend a lot of money on this alcohol and on this weed, once I sober up, this problem is still there. So I was like, you know what? My best thing to do is just change the way I see what I'm going through. Like a lot of people, like Jim Rohn said all the time, focus on the solution, not the problem. The more you focus on the solution, the problem is going to disappear. But I don't like doing it no more, because it's like it don't. And whoever gonna watch this, that's tuning in now, who watch it on replay, we're not telling you how to run your life, but I'm just telling you this: like, if you want to change, you got to change things about yourself. And I had to stop smoking. Like, I feel good not to smoke, bro. Like, I feel good. Like, I have more energy. Like, when I used to smoke, I used to be like, feel like I'm slow motion, or I'm eating up a lot of food, or some days I didn't have no appetite. I didn't like, man, like the different emotions when it comes to smoking. Then with the drinking, I don't like waking up and the whole world just spinning, or you hung over, or you slip in the bathroom because you've been throwing up all night. I've experienced all that. Like, I don't want no more. I was like, I'd rather just go listen to Jim Rohn, listen to Les Brown. I'd rather go meditate. I'd rather get in nature, get around. One of my favorite things, bro, I haven't done it often, but every now and then, bro, I go talk to a tree, bro. I go hug a tree, or I take my shoes off, bro, and walk. Well, it's not really grass right here, but when I get opportunity, bro, I like to take my shoes out and like walk barefoot outside in the grass, or in there connect with Mother Gaia, bro. I don't want none of that no more, bro. Like, I don't even. I'm not even a social drinker no more. I don't even, like, if I'm at an event, bro, and they drinking wine, I don't want nothing, bro. Like, give me a glass of lemon water. Give me some limons with a little. I don't like it, bro. It's just, I'm just different now, bro. It's like I'm married, got 4 kids, bro. I just want the best for them, bro. Like, and sometimes kids, they pick up on what they really see you doing. So if my kids see me smoking all day and drinking, that's gonna be like, oh, that's cool. I see my dad do it, and that's gonna what they want to do. So I'm giving them a different opportunity. Like, for instance, I'm an author, and I'm finna help my daughter that's 16, finna be 16. I'm finna help her write her first book.
Nice.
I know we off topic because
No,
it's
no, no.
about health, but I just want to do it for my kids, man. Then the stuff you consume in your body, if it don't affect you now, it's going to affect you later in life. That's how I look at everything, bro.
Yeah. So I mean, it really sounds like you started to like yourself more, so that, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like being this way. I don't like doing this thing. I don't feel good. I don't like myself. And eventually, you just faced yourself. You say, all right, well, let's get her done. And it's very helpful when you have external motivators. I know for myself, when I have to swim and bust my balls, down the pool or fight, and I have someone else beside me, I can do it no problem, man. I'll go to like my arms give out until like I'm puking on the side. But if I gotta do it on my own, shit, swim up and down nice and easy. Just hit the sauna. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I'm motivated by other people. That's the reality, right? And as much as I would love
Mm-hmm.
to be like all internal, like for what reason? I would like to just enjoy. So it sounds for your big transformation change. You have external motivators. You have people you want to impress, inspire, and be the best version of yourself for, and that's beautiful. And that's something that I think people don't how to say this without going too far into like the esoteric side of things. But when you meet a kid and they don't have a dad in the house, there's a certain way that kid acts, right? And when there is a dad in the house, it doesn't matter, like they act different. They're just a little less anxious. They're a little more, call it like whatever, laissez-faire, a little more blunt. And
Mm-hmm.
so just, and it's the same idea. Think about a dog. Maybe not here, just another example here, just so maybe my point makes sense. But if you look at a dog, you're like, well, that dog acts like that family, like if you meet my dog, I have a husky / Labrador, and
That's
my family calls her Slutty Hooker Dog, because this dog is so sweet. She'll come, she'll give you kisses, she'll lick your face. If you have a morsel of food, she'll do anything for it. She'll sit there patiently for it. Super polite, like loves being social, loves human beings, right? And so, you know, I'm pretty sure no matter what dog I get, that's the type of dog that's going to come out of my household. One that's very, very respectful of human beings. If it has to take food out of your hand, it'll never bite you.
mm-hmm.
So now taking that little step further is like, okay, let's break back to this idea that, we have these people around us, but we soak in other people. Like that person with a father or not present or not present, they're different people. There's a different personality there. So this idea, yes, I'm very much so separated by you with, skin and bones and all this other kind of stuff. And, I'm experiencing life here. But just now, the fact that we've exchanged this, call it mental little exercise we've done, had this holy moment, I'm different because I know a few things about you that I now can use with other people. Be like, well, I know someone that really changed their life around, and this is what happened to them. This is their, call it, like a catalyst. And now I'm different because I know this, and now that seeds into me. I put it in my subconscious because I had a response to that information. And so this is this idea that we're all part of the matrix. It's the idea not to escape the matrix, shape the matrix. You shape it
Mm-hmm.
into what you want. Like there's no escaping this thing. You chose to came in here. So make what you want. It's exactly like the movie, except you can't just snap your fingers. It happens. You have to be able to visualize it. You have to
Right.
be able to articulate it, and then you have to go and do it. And then when you do it, other people can now, jump on board. And bringing things into verbal, that skill, the verbal skill, is super important. And this is where I'll bring it back to just the word science. There is an objective to take language away from the individuals, right? Like the word racist, shouldn't we have it as a neutral word first before we attach a negative connotation? Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's sexist. Okay, shouldn't we have a neutral word before we scientist? Those are all, that's just a word, but we put meaning to it. Now I know what racist is in terms of, call it the everyday individual, but if I was very naive, I got, let's say, placed on planet Earth and I'm an alien, and someone said the word racist and I had no, call it, emotional understanding of that word, I would be like, oh, okay, it's people who study race. That would be my naive approach to it, right? But we
Mm-hmm.
don't have that because someone has co-opted that word. In the same way, they've co-opted the word science. Look what got spun around in the last couple of years. Trust the science. That doesn't make sense. The whole point of science is to take trust out of the equation. So it's no longer belief, it's knowledge, you see?
Mm-hmm.
And now you have people be like, well, I don't, I moved away from science. Like, no, God, it's not, it's not the place you want to go. You want to have that as a tool to your repertoire. And so this ability to take the world and put it into words is extremely powerful, because it's this mass formation that can come behind it where people are no longer thinking. They don't even know what they're saying. Yet our skill, our differentiating part as a animal on this planet is this language component, right? To be able to say, hey, I'll meet you at 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock yard, I'll meet you then. There's no other animal that can say that. And
Right.
so we have this ability to work through time. And it's again through this power of language. And our language is what seeps into the subconscious, which eventually programs how you respond to the world. If you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly thinking about things like, oh, don't do evil things, don't do bad, don't do this, don't do kill, don't be envious, don't be jealous. The mind doesn't hear the word don't. And what you're constantly putting forward is these ideas of really not built. You're not building into the world. You're not creating. Versus be impeccable with your word. That's great. Look at that. It'll make me really careful with what I say. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't just go through around things that are controversial initially. I saw that you're a smart man. I saw that you have insights to this world. that are way deeper than what I would say the average individual does. And so I'm comfortable now throwing things at you with knowing that you're not going to sit there and
right.
Yeah.
Because I look at it like this, Mr. Daniel, like it's your eyesight and it's your insight. Your eyesight is what you see physically, but your insight is just your mind. That's why I believe you create your reality with your thoughts. Like if you think of something, it's gonna, like you said, for instance, you visualize things. I can do that too. That's me using that insight, which is your inner sight. Like, and most people just see things naturally with their eyesight. But that's how I manifest a lot of stuff, and I see the world different because I look at it from my insight, from the mind point, instead of looking at it just like this. Like for instance, me and you can be looking out the same window with that eyesight, but you probably looking at the bird that's flying. I'm looking at the cat that's chasing the mice. But when you look at stuff from the mind sight, you don't see none of that. You just see past it. Like for another example, like I look at it like this: like most people only see the acorn, but me, I see the trees in the forest because I'm using my mind sight and I know what that acorn or that seed can become instead of just looking at the seed now. But that is how I look at life. I look at life from the mind, from the insight, which is the mind.
Yeah, that's the human superpower, and I think that's something very important to help nurture and develop. And that's in a lot of ways truncated by, I think choices, right? I think the best thing I can tell for people is that there's only one tool that can be used against you that's harmful for your soul, and that tool is fear. So when we use the word proverbial, oh, it's a they, like, well, who's this they? That's all they have on us is just fear, right? And if you believe that your soul can be captured and imprisoned, it can, yeah. And the only person imprisoning it is you. Right, until the soul realizes like, no, I don't want to play this game anymore, I'm out of here, and then you eject and you go do something else. And so this I love the inner sight. I've talked about this many times. I've never said inner sight. I love that, by the way. I'm taking that now too.
Yeah, bro, look, I share
that's
me, bro. I just like sharing stuff, useful information, because I heard somebody else say it. Like I think I heard Jerome say it, and it always stuck with me, bro. Like that's how you learn, bro. When you hear knowledge, everybody holler knowledge is powerful. No, applied knowledge is powerful. You can hear a lot of stuff, but you don't apply it. So once I heard him say that, it stuck with me. Like your insight and your eyesight. Your insight is like it's the inner sight. So it's really you with your mind, but your eyesight is what you see physically. So it always just resonated with me, bro, when I just heard that.
So I guess some practical advice for people that like, okay, what can they take from this? Hey, I don't have it. How do I develop it? Or hey, how do I get back to it? And so what's a non-negotiable? Like we said, movement's a non-negotiable. What's another one of my non-negotiables? It's fasting. Right? Like what you did now is you took these substances, it altered your state of mind, it altered your state of being, it messed with your emotions, and then you gave that up. And I'm guaranteed, obviously I can't say, but I would feel like if you had it again in your life, you just have too much going on. You have too many things that are holding you in a better state of mind in which you wouldn't destroy your life. You'd be like, okay, whatever, I don't want to do this. And so, that's a really good place to be in. And so now when we think the word fasting, I'm sure you've heard intermittent fasting, right? Like this whole idea of like you eat, 2 times a day or once a day. And, you have these windows where there's no caloric food that you have to break down, right? Like there's no milk in your coffee. There's nothing that's going to spike your insulin. There's nothing that's going to start the digestive programming. And so that part is absolutely critical for human health. Like breakfast, lunch, and dinner was a big con. That's marketing. That's not science. The physiology we've known for over 100 years. Like your liver needs to clean your blood in order for you to be able to experience health, in order for you to have a clear mind. And it can't do that if you're constantly eating. So this idea of inner sight, I don't know if you know this, but all spiritual, call it, or holy men that went and wanted to have communion with God or with creation, they would do a fast, 4-day fast. You have saints from, the Christian Orthodox side of things. You have the shamans from, the neck of the woods. They would fast before doing the ayahuasca. And so it's this idea, I think it's even in the Bible, that if you want to gain grace, you have to fast. If you want to accept God's grace, you must fast from the worldly attachments. And so it's very interesting how when we eat, it really brings us, solidifies, make sure it keeps us here. But when we're constantly doing that, we're actually cutting off our mental faculties so that we have this ability for inner sight to develop. So, my pursuit as when I was younger, I was like, I want to get enlightened, so I spent a lot of time meditating and doing this other stuff. And then this joke kind of hit me. It was like, oh, I don't think there's anything to realize. I think the whole thing is like, you got to live life. You got to participate in it, right? As much as you want to be one with everything when you're meditating, it's the notion, like you said, it's not wisdom until you act on it. That's wisdom, is having information and acting on that information. And so there's a sort of joke that sort of came, like a voice yelled at me. It's like, like, stop sitting around, do something. Like, okay, I go do. I talk to people. I share what I learned. Hopefully I help them. And so, the idea of fasting is key because, in a very simple sense, people know this. I think the keto fad, the keto diet, and which is great that some of this language is in the ethos now. It doesn't sound so scary, but it's very simple. It's the idea that you're producing a molecule called a ketone. It's not for energy. It's not like, hey, it's the fact that it's a signaling molecule that turns on neuroprotection. It protects your brain. So if you want to have good cognition, good mental abilities, good emotional states that you can finally deal with your problems, you're going to have a hard time dealing if you're just constantly shoving your gullet down, because again, your body's not producing this metabolite that acts like a signaling molecule that helps you live longer. It helps protect your arteries, helps protect your brain. And so this is something where it's that like spiritual connection with food. Food's not the problem. Like the person that is going around constantly shoving it, you think like, oh, that's the issue. Stop eating, buddy. But no, there's that emotional, spiritual problem that's present there, right? Because that's not how the human being's supposed to function. If you're constantly shoving things down, there's this, and I've done it across my life. I've been addicted to sugar, like crazy when I was younger, especially as an athlete, man. I could throw anything down. And then I went for an extremely long time with no sugar. Now, the first time I had at a gathering cake, and it's like that cake you get at whatever, like whatever you guys got there in your neck of the woods, the Alberts or, Costco, whatever, right? That thing, it tasted like plastic. I was like, oh, this is awful. And it was so sugary while everyone else is eating no problem. I'm like, this is like, I'm nauseous. And I'm like, I never used to experience this sensation when I would have this food. And then I got a terrible stomachache like within 2 hours. Right? It's like I was poisoned. And so,
go ahead.
Yeah, and so when you allow your body to clean up, it comes back to a point where it actually has that biofeedback, that cycle of like, hey, what's right, what's wrong, and it already knows. You don't have to put words to it. The sensation, the experience is already guiding you. But when I have that stomachache, if the next day I went to have more sugar, oh, I could get easily back to a state where I was before, where I would eat an entire like 2 kilo bags of M&Ms just sitting at the computer working. Hey, I'm doing good stuff. I need energy, right? I convince myself lots of different ways. I kid you not, I've eaten 2 kilograms of M&Ms within 4 hours, right? That's an insane amount. And, it's like a sugar junkie. And it's no different, right? Like I think this like idea, like, oh, this person's doing, hard drugs.
I have my moments too. I be eating like sugar-free cookies or like non-dairy, low-fat ice cream. So I have my moments.
Right. No, different though. I think, and I guess the point, like there's this clear, the sense of the body where you have a reflexive response that you can listen to, and you can mess that up. And if you have messed that up, then you got to work from the mental side of things to bring it back into, oh, okay, I don't have this anymore. How do you fix it? I have to start incorporating fasting. And you said, I'm so pumped that you said it, but lemon water.
Oh, so, I drink lemon water every day, bro. I love I still work a 9 to 5, bro. Like I work at Red Robin's, and while everybody there drinking sodas and the juice, bro, every time I go over there, I get lemon water with ice in it, like 3 lemons and 3 limes, bro. And while I'm here, like me and my wife, we juice a lot. we drink lemon water, bro. I love it's just something about it's refreshing. Like I just love lemon water, bro. Limon.
So you're on the perfect track already. I mean, God spoke to you, I guess, in a very direct way. Because so what I recommend as the easiest, call it a blood cleaner, is lemon water. It's the easiest thing to access. There's other
Mm-hmm.
things you can do. You mentioned celery seed. Juicing celery is a phenomenal blood cleaner. Now, first thing in the morning is important. Like break the fast. Is that you would like something to help move the contents from your liver into your colon. So you slept, you recovered, you regenerated, you dealt with your recovery systems. So your liver now needs help transferring that stuff into the colon. And lemon has these compounds in it that acts to do that. So it transports, call it the stuff you've detoxified. But if you eat an egg, even something healthy, what you're telling the liver is like, hey, you know what? Hold on to those toxins for a moment, the aldehydes and everything else you've broken down. And we got to process this nutrient-rich egg. It's tons of nutrients. It's great for you. But like we didn't give you the transport to move the toxins out very easily. So water can do that. Water is a good thing. If you got nothing, drink water first thing in the morning. Water is the universal solvent. But lemon is the next notch up. One, it'll make your blood more basic. So it helps you have, call it, more feeling of energy, helps you have that lucidity. Makes you like less inflamed, less prone to if you're working out, to being sore. It has that portion where it helps facilitate the liver, lemon or lime. They both will do it. It helps facilitate the liver, and then it's got tons of electrolytes. This is why, like, if you're gonna get, like, if you drink a lot, you can drink hard liquor with lemon the entire night with lots of water, like vodka lime water, and you won't feel like shit the next day. Whereas if you're slamming beers or sugary drinks, it's awful. So I don't say that like, hey, go do that. But if you're already doing it, try this out, and then you come and report back to me. Are you better off the next morning? And I guarantee you will, because this is also what people pay me for, right? Like, hey, how can I live a lifestyle that's destructive, but
Man.
like offset it? And the thing is, I'm not here to judge. I'm not your judge. I'm not the judge. I'm here to, as best I can, just as a matter of fact, soften the blow, let you know what's going to come out, or connect you to information, right? So I'm pumped that you're on the lemon water track. That is, super important in the morning to help you clean your blood. And if you want, throw in a pinch of cayenne pepper. Cayenne pepper acts as a blood stimulant,
That's a
right?
spicy. That's spicy, and it's like a little hot. Like I was told, like you need like a little spice in your life. That's what I was told, but I try to stay away from the spicy stuff. But I'm gonna try that. But like I like drinking water with I put the what's thing called ginger root. I think that's the name of it.
Yeah.
I
So
put.
yeah,
Go
that's what
ahead.
my lady does for us here. Well, she'll juice about 12 lemons, and she'll grind up the ginger. She'll just sieve that out, put it in a jar for us. And so then we have about 2 tablespoons that in a cup, put it for water. We cheers in the morning. That's how we start our day. And then I throw in a little cayenne pepper, and then just a little bit. You don't have to do a lot, just as a blood stimulant, right? So cayenne pepper is one of those, call it like nature's medicine. It really is nature's medicine, where it can do profound things for you. And it doesn't. So lemon and the cayenne pepper don't break your fast. Right. So what that means is that it doesn't get your digestive enzymes going. It doesn't turn on digestive programming that then prevents you from cleaning your blood. Rather, it's one of these things you can take to help you clean your blood. And so, you hear a lot of individuals go through a process. Oh, I'm trying to do this cleanse and whatnot, but then they take things in which don't really make sense, right? That start their digestive processes, and
Right.
they aren't able to then help them with the cleanse. And it's kind of like, okay, well, you need to take a few of these things out of your smoothie, and then your smoothie will be great, right? Then it will be actually doing what you intended to do. The other 2 things that are very easy to add to anyone's plate is the parsley and cilantro. I love parsley and cilantro because those are chelators. And what that means is they bind metals, they bind stuff in your body, they help you remove it, pull it out. And so we're all exposed to that in today's day and age. There's tons of these residues, chemical products, pipes, whatnot. So, parsley and cilantro are one of my favorite things. And so, this idea of fasting to me is fascinating. Where intermittent fasting, we call it that. I don't have a better name. If you come up with a better name, great. Like I call it the default way of living, the respectful way, your respectful attitude with food. But if you eat, very simply, if you eat, at 5 o'clock every day, you're doing a 24-hour fast every single day, about
Mm-hmm.
23 and a half, 23. That's phenomenal. And anything you do out, that is what I would consider fasting, where you're turning on this programming for your system in which really allows you to connect with, I think, higher faculties. Once you've subsided the animal, like I must eat, the hunger, wow, there's so many other things to do. And my hope is that you do have more important things in life, the things got going on, rather than, hey, what's the next thing I'm eating, right?
Right.
Pleasure is made simple, so all creatures can experience it, right? Food,
Mm-hmm.
sex, this feeling of that we have things in control. Every creature can do that, from a squirrel to a horse to us, right? But now, okay, you're freed from that, right? Especially in today's day and age. Look at our societies; we've done phenomenal for ourselves. So don't let the convenience of this, I think, derail your health. Don't think that, hey, I did exercise and I took my supplements, therefore I'm going to live to 100 years old. There's this incredible emotional component. There's this social component. There's this mood and temperament, or spiritual component. There is this attitude of not what you're eating, but can you control how often you're eating it? And then this recovery systems. How good is your sleep? How good is your environment? And it's a very simple, I would say, like, message I was sending here for people, is that you can't have A+ health in a C- environment. It doesn't work. So this idea of, like, you, me, and I, that's language. That's great, but understand we're working as is like this meta organism, planet Earth, where if you destroy what's around you, yeah, you're not long before you follow suit in that. And as human beings, we have the most amount of ability to transform our world. There's no, like, a beaver can, do a little work. Nah, there's nothing that comes in close to what we can do. We can guide what creatures get to be on the planet, and which can transform, our world in unbelievable ways. And so, that's the biospirituality that's coming to the forefront. That's the understanding that's coming to the forefront, right? I'm here just as a messenger and a connector to, I think, some of these ideas, where
Mm-hmm.
it is going to be the next generation that it is going to have to continue I think, the battle here for what I would say freedom in a big sense, but it's this ability to experience life, to live and thrive, where I do think the generations previous to us, they failed in a lot of ways. They failed because they took easy ways out. They didn't question, they didn't stop it when it got implemented. And here is now the turn of the wheel. This is where we're at. And I don't think anyone wants to see our society and our cultures be eroded. We don't want that, especially America. I guess say America is, last bastion of freedom on the planet.
That's it. Hey, it is what it is. Cause truth be told, I'm trying to get the fuck up out of America. Not now, but some years from now, I'm
Sure.
planning on leaving America. I ain't got nothing against America. I just know some shit don't add up. So I rather. Then you think when you go to, like, I be watching TV and seeing, like, people that live in islands or around a lot of water or around the beach, how they they just see life different and they just look different and they more healthy because they getting the stuff straight from the earth, man. All this processed shit, but it is
No,
what it is.
I get you. And what I mean to say is that, for sure, for the individual life, it might be best to kind of kick it to, let's say, Mexico, Costa Rica. Some of these other places have a lot simpler way of life. But what America is doing for the planet in a lot of ways, as people are fighting for tooth and nail. I mean, a lot of, call it, atrocities are happening in America. That's not really what my point was. My idea, at least, and I could be by far wrong, I'm just throwing as idea, is that there's America has a constitution. So the individual has the most power on the planet when they're in America. Everywhere else, good luck. Like Canadian Charter, I mean, whatever. It might be applied in court, or it might not. You can just get waved off, but you can't do that to the Constitution. So where else on the planet can a person fight for themselves that they can in America? And this is where I think people understand that. This is why America has been such a, I think, interesting, I call it, force for planet Earth, where the powers that be, obviously, like, I don't think I'm the first here to say the deep states, a way to be able to manipulate and use a lot of resources that come from America and direct it to different place. But there is, I think, outside of what I would say, us little average common folk, there is a battle that's happening amongst these, call it, very influential individuals that can make the world, blow up in a second. There is a battle amongst them. And,
Mm-hmm.
America is, it's very important that world has a strong America, because if the Constitution, no longer exists, if that can hold weight for a person anymore, you can't hide. Satellites will find you no matter where you are. And
Exactly.
yeah,
Eagle
and so what? Humanity's going to have to fight that battle eventually, and hopefully not with guns, but with intellect, right? And with very simple rules, laws, and applying them, using them, and I see it already happening. I see people, understand the actual battle at hand, and what needs to be done, and it's done on every front. No matter where you're working, what you're doing, you do it with your vote, and not on the ballot, but with your vote, with what you put into the world, what you usher, what you believe. Your vote is with your dollar in a lot of ways, even though it's fiat and just useless in a lot of sense. You still
Right.
vote with it. That's your real voting. If people understood, like you don't want processed food anymore, don't buy it. You'll see how that business instantly goes out. And that even though they can turn money from one place to the other, eventually that place that is given the opportunity to produce that processed stuff will have to get sold. And it doesn't mean that a group can't band together, buy it out, and do something different in there. And then when call it the people want to come down and put the ban on, that's when the people have to come together. It's like, no, this is the right way to be able to practice so that we have health. We can showcase that the route that's been done is not going towards the healthy side. And the funny thing is that there's so many smart people today, and especially in America, where you can't get away with doing shit wrong without somebody putting out the correct version of it. And so I'll just say, for the last 4 years, you had this big experiment being done, and you had tons of people do for free the audit. They put the information. I'm trying to avoid the actual words, so like
I already know.
people
I
can fill
got
in the
you, bro.
blank. But you have scientists, you have doctors, you have people that aren't even in the medical field, from politics, step in, being like, where's the experiments to back this? Here's the outcomes that we have. Here's the injuries from this rollout of this experiment. And it was just work that was done for free. So humanity will fight and do the work in every aspect that you can, because we have so many people that are knowledgeable in their area that you can't suppress the information indefinitely, right? And Buddha said 3 things will always rise: the moon, the sun, and the truth. Right. So,
I like it.
this is where I think, it's a very important precedent that's set, and eventually it'll spill into other parts of the world, because again, I do think, with the story for planet Earth is a story of freedom. It could be from the ancient Egypt times, where who knows what they were doing. Were they astral projecting from the Great Pyramids? Were they preparing individuals to be able to experience this higher state of being? Did those individuals, succeed? Are we the, call it, ancestors of those individuals, in which are supposed to maintain this understanding? Did the human being get grown from a state where it was extremely reliant on someone else? And it may sound awful, but it was beneficial to be a servant's, call it a being, because you were learning how to talk, you were learning how language worked, you're learning mathematics, geometry, technologies. Isn't it great that there was someone to, call it, shepherd you in, and you serve them? But now you must step into that role. You've gotten to a point. Humanity has had this ability to grow its consciousness, and I think, from the part of the world I was born in, my consciousness like that of a young adult for my lifetime. Maybe other parts of the planet, they're teenagers. Right? I see a lot of people here in Canada very naive, like super naive. They don't think there's any, call it, funny business going around. And I'm like, just look at the news. Didn't you see how much money is being, call it, funneled down and laundered? And there's this like oblivious that I don't want to take part in it. I'm uncomfortable with this conversation. So the consciousness of the adult, even though they're in their 60s, is like that of, call it, like a teenager. And so I see this. I see that the humanity is stepping into a new role, and I do think our roots matter a lot, but it doesn't actually decide where we want to take it. Whatever it was, whether we were a slave race as human beings, whether we were genetically engineered, whether we evolved from, different hominids, like exactly like, the narrative says, whatever, it doesn't matter. What are you going to do about it right now? You get to choose where your bloodline goes this moment. However much hatred or love your lineage had, great or not great. Do you continue that? Do you continue to emulate joy, love to the people around you? Do you forgive people for their mistakes and their lack of knowledge? Or do you get harbored down and you just want to hate the world and see it burn? And this is all part of, I think, the game. It's you choose. If you didn't have the ability to choose, I don't think it'd be worth coming here. You know what I mean? So yeah, I guess that's really what I have to share in terms of things that they missed out in school. Obviously, we can go down some more practical nitty gritties, but honestly, the biggest part, it's a non-negotiable. I would say for the very practical takeaway, you have to incorporate some level of fasting in your life, that respect for food, and even just incorporating a small amount of really, I kind of said the parsley, cilantros, like the other parts would be the fats, high quality fats, some kind of easy to assimilate protein. And if you get to that spot, you're already start connecting with, I think information, connecting with the source intelligence, the other people that are sharing this kind of journey, to get to a better state of being, and I think people need to know they're not alone. Everyone's here. No matter how late you come to the party, welcome. We can't wait to have you.
Mm-hmm. But man, this has been some useful information. I just want to thank you once again for coming on and sharing all the information, because I know somebody gonna be touched by this. And like me, I don't care about the views. I like it's like the knowledge, like the information, getting it out there. But bro, like, thank you so much again. Like, this is like the longest interest conversation I ever had. Like, we coming up on almost 2 hours, bro. And I don't got no time limit on my podcast, but I gotta go pick my son up in a little bit. But I appreciate this so much, bro. Like, anything you would like to leave the viewers who gonna watch this on replay, who gonna watch this a week from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, anything you like to leave? Because I always tell my guests, leave an inspirational message. Like, what, man, you got it, bro. Like, that's all I can say, man. Like, I'm glad I met you, man. Like, the information you shared was very knowledgeable. Like, I learned a lot today just by sitting here and listening. Like, I know enough, but you shared some stuff, bro, that had me like, I'm gonna try that, especially with the cayenne pepper. I'm gonna try that.
Nice. I really appreciate you, my man. Like, I appreciate how open this was. I've fully free flowed. Obviously, I stumbled, wasn't perfect. This isn't like the call it Andrew Huberman style. Everything I'm already prepared. This is off the cuff. This is my emotions, my views. And whatever. I'm more open to being wrong about anything. Anything I shared, it's an idea for you to take with, run with. Come back to me. The bits of biology, I can hope that they're useful, and that you can run with it. But a piece I would like to leave people with is that aside from all the things that we think about health, and you can partake in the fasting, all that to the side, the most important part is to regain your language, right? Mm-hmm. Make it so that no word acts that it elicits emotions out of you that you don't want it to, right?
I love it.
Your language is your connection to this world first and foremost, and wield that like a sword, wield that like a weapon, wield that like an intellect, where it's your responsibility to be able to know that language is going to guide and manifest the world in which you see. That's going to guide your beliefs. It's going to create your reality. And I can't wait for the next, call it little word. We have words like excitement. We have the word amazement. I can't wait for the next word someone comes up, some genius kid, or heck, some wise old man, in which gives me more tools to be able to navigate our mental frameworks, our mental faculties, right? That brings more out of maybe what our ancestors had better understanding of. And so that would be, I think, the most important thing, right? So again, thank you, Marcus, man. It's been a pleasure. You're an absolute gem. It's been fun.
I ain't gonna lie. Look, I just got put, like, I'm finna become a writer in this magazine. Like, I met this person on the Our app, and she got no fucks given magazine. And I applied to be like, I sponsor somebody in that magazine. It's digital right now. I even got an article, a piece done on me in the magazine. But I'm going to go through the process of becoming a contributor writer to the magazine. So I'm definitely going to reach out to you, bro. If you want to share your story, bro, in the magazine, bro, I'm going to reach out to you. But, man, thank you
Yeah, I
so much,
appreciate that.
bro.
Yeah.
So
If anyone wants to find me, Timeline Sciences,
there you
right?
go.
It's that simple, right? This is our timeline, right? My timeline, your timeline, our converged timeline, and use science to describe the timeline you're on. It's a tool. So I help you connect with the science that's important to you. I help you establish frameworks of science, and uh, timelinesciences.com. And the only social media platform I use right now is X. I will get better with Instagram. I have people helping me. They're going to be, they're going to be taking a lot of that on because that's not my skill set. And on Twitter, I am Timeline Sciences, right? It's that simple. You'll see me
So
on
you
there.
said sciencetimeline.com.
That's right. Timelinesciences.com. So I can put that once this goes, I can put that in the description below. Timeline Sciences. No problem. Happy to comment on here. But shoot me a message. I'm more than happy to work with you. I'm more happy to help. I give talks, seminars. I do a lot of things. I keep my business open so that I can meet a lot of individuals. I can learn a lot, and that's really the wealth that I bring. I connect individuals with those stories, and so that they understand, really what is possible. Right? When you live your life, you are a testament to what is science. You're a
Right.
testament to what's possible, and so you can't just listen to somebody say, "Oh, you can't heal from lupus." Lupus is a lifelong disease. When I now know 3 individuals that have gone through that,
Bro,
and
that's funny you said that because my wife, she had butterfly lupus.
okay, well, we can be in conversations. Let's get on the right track to deal with that.
I
Right?
definitely will, bro, because that's another reason why I got a butterfly tattooed on my face. That's my love for her, but she deal with that, bro. She got butterfly lupus, and I know it's other routes out here, bro, that she can, because she don't really fuck with the medicine like that neither. And I know it's other routes out here, bro, that she can go to, because you really got to clean your blood up. Like, you got to start with there. That's why we drink a lot of lemon water and we just eat the right stuff for our body. But, bro, I'm glad you mentioned it, bro. Like, man, you has been a blessing, bro. I was trying to actually go to your website and your Instagram page so I can put it in the thing, www.timeline science. Yeah, but bro,
Yeah, so when it comes to lupus, there's obviously the very direct information. I just punched him there in the chat. There's very direct information from like the medical side of things that I can comment and say, which is very valuable, very useful. The molecular mechanisms, the what we see from lab tests and what that means. That's one side, and then the other side is too, which I don't have ironed out by any means, but this is something I have conversations with another group. But when we get a disease, is that something along the lines of an autoimmune condition? Is like you're rejecting yourself. Is there something that happened throughout life in which some emotion, like that we experienced that would mimic that type of event? And so obviously that doesn't parallel perfectly, but is there something there in which caused the genetics or the expression of the genetics to move in that direction? Because if there is, then there's a very two-pronged approach. The hey, let's give you things to help clean the blood out. That's one part, and that can help stabilize. And then the other part is, okay, how do we get back to that emotional state so that now you can deal with it as an adult? You can either forgive whoever it was that kind of put you in that emotional state. You can either accept, that, acceptance is a huge part of it. Be like, okay, it happened. And then the next part is to find resolution or joy and build from that. We're not meant to forget our negative experiences. It's a bit of the opposite. We end up remembering more negative things in life than we do positive. And that's because the negative things help shape what we're going to do otherwise in this world. And so when we have an adverse reaction, we want to do the opposite, if we're in a state of growth and a state of pursuit of healing and betterment. So, that's the, I guess, the quick blurb for an autoimmune and very much so she can handle it. I'm glad to hear that she's trying to tackle it different ways. So everything's we can add and incorporate, and yeah, man. I'm
We definitely gonna keep in touch, bro. I'm gonna send you my number, man, because
yeah,
you're knowledgeable, bro. But I thank you so much once
yeah.
again. And so all my fans, I ain't gonna say fans, that's bougie. Y'all not my fans, y'all my viewers, y'all my supporters. So all my supporters, man, thank y'all for just tuning in. The 2 people that did tune in for almost an hour, 2 hours, thank y'all so much, man. And look, it's another platform that they can reach you on. You ain't sure. Share your information, bro. Like I don't want to share your information, bro. Like
we got Twitter. Twitter, I will look at. I'm there on regularly. I don't post, but I do use that as a messaging platform. I got my website. If you message me through the website, you will get in contact with me. Instagram, I don't really touch. Will get help with that. And I'm not sure if am I missing something else here. I have LinkedIn, right? But I'm terrible with that. If you message me, you might get a response in a month. So just understand that, right? I am a scientist, right? I am learning the skills of business. I prefer doing this conversations, lectures. That to me is absolutely, so fulfilling.
good, man. This was good.
The tech side of things, man, that ain't my jam.
But no, man, I appreciate it, man. I don't want to hold you much longer, man. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, man, to come on. And I just sent you my number through Instagram. Perfect. I want to get more information on lupus. But until next time, bro, I appreciate you, man. You're a good person, man.
Hey, much
peace. This was good.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I'll put my glasses back on here because I am actually I got a terrible sight, but nice.